Record, if you could please give your name and the capacity in which you appear today. Oh, welcome back everyone, sorry.
Good morning, my name is Mike Williams. I am a long-distance truck driver. I appear as a private citizen and a concerned private citizen with respect to what's going on in our roads in the past, now, and what I hope doesn't continue into the future.
Thanks, Mike. And I've just for the public record, you and I have had a number of conversations. I've read your submission not once but twice. I read it when you first sent it, and then I read it again coming up on Sunday. And there's nothing in there that I could pick apart. In fact, there's everything in there that I could support. More importantly, I want you to make an opening statement, and this is your chance to tell the world exactly what you see. But more importantly, there are a lot of truck drivers telling me what's wrong, but I really want to hear what's your view on how we can fix it. So Mike, over to you, and then I'll throw a few questions at you. And Senator Rennick, should you wish to ask a question, just please butt in.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to say that I haven't always been a truck driver. I've come at my submission and my understanding by my previous fields of work and by the conversations that I've had with many people over many years. I'm obviously familiar with the work Professor Quinlan's done, and many of the people that you've had present submissions, I'm aware of what their positions are, and some of their positions have informed the way I respond to the terms of reference of your inquiry, Senator. The fact is that I've sat on the sidelines and watched things happen for many years, and I've poked my head up occasionally and managed to get kicked a few times from saying what I think, and I would encourage all of my colleagues to understand that if we don't speak, then nothing will change, and we don't stand the opportunity to improve the lot of others down the track. So that's what motivates me to be here today. I'm also here to remember, as of many others, I've stood beside the graves of colleagues. I've been first on scene at accidents several times. In my former profession as an operating theatre nurse, I've stood at the table and helped repair some of the smashed bodies, and seen the broken families in the recovery rooms. So you'll have to forgive me if I get a little bit passionate about some of the things I care to say. I did always promise myself if I ever got the opportunity to address the Senate, or it was my maiden speech in the House, I would say, listen up, you bastards. So that's where I am today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Great. So Mike, no holds barred?
No holds barred.
No holds barred. We know that you're, just for those listening that may not know Mike, I remember once the Prime Minister saying to me that they're worried, that they're a bit scared what might come out of my mouth, and I said, you're worried. So Mike, I think we can apply that to you as well, but please, you've never been backward and forward, and I want you to really let it out, mate, and let's roll our sleeves up and let's get into it.
All right, so you've had submissions from people that are right across all the nitty-gritty of the laws and with all the contract writers and all that sort of stuff. My purpose in being here today is to state what may seem just to be the bleeding obvious, that is everything that happens within inside the transport industry is driven by the motivations of the various stakeholders. Now, I use the word stakeholders advisedly because I don't think all the stakeholders get a fair go. Now, we've had submissions from various road traffic authorities, and in my submission here I say that to make any progress we have to get people onto the same page. We have to get people understanding that not all of our motivations match, and that where there is a mismatch, there is an inevitable power play that happens. Some people in this tree have more power than others, and they're not afraid to flex their muscle. So if you've got the situation where, if you just look at the motivations of the customer, they want everything that's coming to them, everything comes by truck one time or another, everything from these bottles of water on the table to the paint on the walls has been in a truck at one time or another, sometimes more than once. And the customers want their products as cheap as they can possibly be, in a time frame that suits them, at a location that suits them, and in a way that impacts them as little as possible. And moving down the chain, the manufacturers want as much as they can get, and they want to truck their product as cheaply as possible, and that's what motivates them. The distribution centres need to minimise their expenses as much as they can. They don't want to have more staff than they need because that affects their bottom line, but they don't seem to consider that sometimes affects the long distance driver that's waiting on the dock to get out of there and go and do his next job. I have personal experience of that. There are considerations with the authorities. They wish to show the public that they are doing their best to make sure that all of these truck drivers and companies that are responsible are doing things within the laws as they're passed and to make the public as safe as possible. Unfortunately, we end up with disjointed decisions and opportunities for people to take advantage. And being humans will take advantage every chance they get. So if you want to consider a simple example of a 25 and a 26 metre B-double, they both tow the same trailer set, they both use the same prime mover. The only difference between the two trucks is that one has a front underrun protection system bull bar on it, the 26 metre, and the 25 metre doesn't. They can be allocated to run on different routes, and if the driver makes a small mistake and ends up on the wrong route, or he doesn't measure his truck properly, he is the one that the enforcement body inflicts the fine on at the time on the side of the road. So my point is to you, Senators, is that the people at the bottom, the owner drivers and the drivers who have the least power in the whole equation and no way to respond, are the ones that end up the focus of the authorities on the road. And while I understand there is a chain of responsibility and people will be screaming out there now, what about chain of responsibility, Mick? The reality of it is the chain of responsibility is something we hear very little about as a driver. We don't find out what's going on until well after it's happened. And it seems to some of us, me included, that some of the, for the want of a better description, punishments that get handed down in no way match the extent of the injury that's been done to society. So I would submit, sir, that there are a number of things, and I've made recommendations rather than just pointing out what the errors are, that need to happen in order to address things, but they need to happen, I suspect, in a certain order or in some cases simultaneously. I have no doubt in my mind that road safety and the loss of life that happens on our road, particularly in the commercial sector, is a direct result of low remuneration, and as a result of that, affecting the hours that drivers work, affecting the maintenance that's done on the vehicles, and affecting the statistics that we see on the road. Last year we had a spike in deaths on the road, and I say to you and all the other senators and anyone that will listen to me, that while we continue to accept people dying on our roads in the course of their employment, or say that we want to trend towards zero in 2035 or something ridiculous like that, we are accepting that 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 families are going to suffer the same pain that I've suffered and that friends of mine's families have suffered, and it will continue to happen, and it happens needlessly. At this point, I'd like to remember my friend Dutchy Holland and have his name read into the record, who was killed in an accident near Moree. And every time I drive past where he used to park his truck, I look over and see the truck not there, and well, it affects me.
And Mike, while you're at it, mate, and this is something that gets missed out, and I'll give you an opportunity to have a glass of water, and it's nice that you did do that. And I reckon the whole trucking fraternity has a story like that to tell. And I know that I remember going past a body on the side of the road and the sheet blew off. And it was it stays with me even to this day. And I didn't know the person. But we must remember them, and we have all these wonderful lights on the hill and all this sort of stuff that we need to do. But as I have said, and Mike, I know that you're hard to argue with me, why is this just a part of doing business? So let's come back, and I want you to keep going, Mike, because what I do admire, and I admire all our submitters and our witnesses, there's nothing more powerful from hearing from the men and women who've got the steering wheel in their hands. And you have been, like a number of others, not only a driver, an owner-driver. And you have solutions. And I want to get down to that, mate. I want you, I'm going to throw this to you. Yep. You're the Minister for Transport. You're sitting there in Canberra. How are we going to fix this, mate? What do we need?
Well, in my summary, in my submission, I have said that there are a number of things that I believe need to be done. These things on their own, not one of them on their own is a panacea. Not one of them on their own is a silver bullet. Things need to happen in conjunction with each other, and they bounce off each other to produce an effect we want. The unfortunate thing about the points that I've made in my summary is that they are all affected by the motivations of the individuals who would have to have some sort of an input on the way these things happen. You know, if you listen to anyone, if you listen to someone like Rod Hannafy, who's been banging his head against the pavement for years now, talking about the common sense changes to things like rest areas and road surfaces and things like that, and the amount of time that he's had the technology in his truck to measure what the surface of the road is like, then, and the amount of difficulty he's had trying to get different areas of road looked at, the people that take these messages don't seem to take responsibility. And ultimately, we as the public don't get told that this similar incident has happened on that particular road at that particular bump 3 times. Or, you know, we're just not getting that information. And so if we don't get the information, no one worries about it, and these things don't happen. So my first point would be that we need to have national standards for rest areas, and we need to have national standards for roads. Now, I know that there are these things in the works, but these things, apart from being in the works, have to be monitored when they are done, and people have to be held accountable. Our road managers have a huge asset to manage, and it's meant to be managed. If I was the CEO of a big company and I was managing the resources of BHP, I'm beholden to the shareholders for what happens to the shares, I'm beholden to the shareholders for what happens in the company, and I'm beholden to the shareholders to see that the thing has a future. So the shareholders in our country and our roads are the Australian public, and I don't see how the road managers are providing value for money and being held accountable for what's happening on the roads. The next thing I would say, and the most important thing, is to make trip money a thing of the past. If you pick up any old Trucking Life, Big Rigs, Owner Driver magazine from the 80s through to now, somewhere in one of those magazines, one of those 3 issues will come up, just about every issue, and it's been the same. It's a generational thing. Trip money is a criminal act, in my opinion. It's wage theft. If I'm being paid to drive from GPO to GPO, and my motivation is that the more I drive, the more I'm going to make, then I have every incentive to run as hard as I can for as long as I can to make as much as I can. Because the reality of it is I've got bills to pay, I've got kids to send to school, I've got a roof to put over the family's head. And, you know, the other thing that happens as a side result of that, if I do happen to step outside the law a little bit and manage to get caught, then whatever fine that is levied to me, and these things can be eye-watering, is actually a hit out of the bottom line. It's the kid's school trip not paid for, it's the food not on the table, it's the mortgage payment that's not made, and these things are all levied against the driver. When if I'm 4 hours late out of Big W at Monardo going to Melbourne, and I'm expected to be at Rose Meadow supermarket by a particular time, then I am the one that hasn't done my job. If I'm the driver, it's not the DC's fault, it's my fault because I'm not there. And that's been my personal experience. I'm not saying that it's anyone else's experience, but that's my experience. We need to fix the rest areas, we need to fix the roads, we need a pragmatic consideration of vehicle length and weight laws that will allow for better living quarters in trucks. While we don't have the rest areas with the infrastructure in them, a simple thing and a cost-neutral thing that government can do is they should do their damn job and apply the law or make the circumstances such that companies can operate and provide the facilities for the occupational health and safety of their drivers so that they can prepare a meal on the side of the road, that they can perhaps have a shower or at least a toilet.
Mick, can I come in now?
Sure.
Because what really piqued my interest, and you and I have been on the different side of the fence at times
Absolutely.
on certain things, but and just a bit of preamble, what we have managed to do is when we sit down and put the boxing gloves down, we actually think, geez, we want the same outcome. And that is now starting to filter out in the industry. We hear it all on the UHF over the years. I didn't have a UHF, I go back to CB days, where it's all the same arguments. But when we start talking about the outcomes, all of us are on the same page.
That's
Where
right.
we want to go.
Yep.
So what really triggered my my interest, you are the only one, and I'll blow wind up your backside so I get a good rap on the road podcast, but I say this sincerely. There's something as simple as the chemical toilet analogy, example that you put into your submission. When you say that we can have chemical toilets in caravans that take up overall space,
Yes.
and then if we apply that to the road transport industry, because let's use this, to expect to have a toilet and shower at every truck bay, even where we don't have truck bays, there's always an argument over dollars and time we're not going to get there.
Yes.
Something as simple as extending the length of the cabin. I think I sent you a photo of a rig I saw in Las Vegas. Let's talk about that, because you know what? That's no cost to the nation. God help us, we could have a microwave, we could have another fridge, we could have a bigger bed and a little toilet and shower. Your own toilet and shower.
Yes.
Okay, and imagine what that would do to bring women into the industry. I just want to say this, Mick, without taking up too much of your time. I've showered in all these a lot of these crappy roadside, and no disrespect to the roadhouses, there's been mould, cracked tiles, some of the conditions of the toilet bowls are disgusting. Let's really say it as it is. Let's not forget about some of the shower curtains you see. You wouldn't want your worst enemy wrapped up in them with all the dirt and mould on them. You're fighting mud on the floors. That's before we put the toilet paper under our arm, and let's get real serious. And I've got to tell you now, Mick, the days are gone when I could put the toilet paper under my arm, whether Polly's like hearing this or not, wandering in the bush and hoping to Christ a fly didn't land on me on my nose, thinking where the hell was that before it hit me? Okay, because we wouldn't have our politicians putting toilet paper under their arms. Get into this. Tell us about what you could do with common sense for a few more millimetres, inches in our cab, what it means to the truck drivers.
Well, I spent 3.5 years running the paddock, Sydney to Perth, with my other half as a two-up team driver. We were in a K200 big cab, and we had a standard size bunk because we didn't need to be in it at the same time. And I think she objects to me being there at the same time sometimes anyway. But the reality of it is that we had a chemical toilet in that thing that I used to take care of, and the reason why that was there was because I didn't want her to have to endure some of the things on the road that people endure. Now, I am a great supporter of women in trucking. I think there should be more of it, because let's face it, the fact of the matter is our pool of experienced drivers is shrinking. We're all getting older, and I don't think that trucking is a bad industry to be in, but it certainly has its challenges. And for women, one of those challenges is the facilities on the road. Now, when it comes to providing those facilities, all it takes is a little bit of extra length. So if you have a look at the trucks that are easily available in the US that aren't that much larger in the wheelbase that we run here, and all it requires is a stroke of the pen from the lawmakers, and these things can change. There are a couple of things that need to change. The first thing that needs to change is we have to get rid of this ridiculous width rule that stops a truck that's 4 centimetres wider than the Australian standard from being approved in Australia. Because, Glenn, I'm telling you, if 4 centimetres is the difference between having an accident, it's already too late. Right, so there's that. And then there are these other trucks. If you have a look at any of the trucks on the straight in the States, like the Volvo VN series or even the Kenworth W9 series. There are cabovers that are big enough. If we had the ability, Peterbilts that are big enough, if we had the ability to put those sort of things on the road and have our Australian manufacturers manage to manufacture a truck of that specification, then I am sure Kenworth would have design draftsmen on the drawing board tomorrow afternoon designing a W9 for Australia.
So Mick, come back. I can't preempt what the recommendations will be, but I really want to get down to this because all the naysayers will come back. What is the cost to industry? Now let's really roll up our sleeves, as you're saying. This is the stroke of a pen.
It is a stroke of a pen, but it's also, we're in an environment where experienced drivers are getting harder and harder and harder to come by. Now, I don't know whether, I believe you're certainly aware, Senator, that I am moving to Western Australia very shortly.
We've let the rabbit-proof fence down, mate. We heard you coming.
Yeah, because I have family over there and I want to spend some more time closer to some grandchildren. And when I was running Perth, I saw Western Stars with big stratosphere sleepers on them towing 14 pallet A trailers and triples around the Roe Highway. If I ran that truck around the M7, someone would have a kitten.
Really?
And it would cost a lot of money in the fine to do it, because those trucks aren't, unless you've got a permit, those trucks aren't suitable here. We have A-doubles, pocket road trains, we have all sorts of things that are coming online now. But the problem with it is as I've said, our road managers are making people jump through hoops to run those sort of trucks, but they don't cover the length of the prime mover. They cover the overall length of the vehicle. Yep. There are X and Y measurements, and if I had my good friend Adam here, who's a risk assessment engineer, he would be sitting here beside me. He's going, tell them this, tell them this, tell them this. But I'm not a rules person. I'm not a laws person. I can't talk about measurements in the same way that someone like Adam or some of the other presenters could. But they will tell you that the swept path and all that sort of thing is really not that much different. The reality of actually driving and operating these vehicles on the road isn't that much different. So if we were to allow, I drive a 909 Kenworth now with a 50-inch integrated sleeper on it. I can't quite fit a chemical toilet in the slide-in area behind the seat. But if I could have a 72-inch sleeper, then I have got the room. I have a microwave, I have a fridge, I have a freezer, I have those things now, but I don't have room to put the chemical toilet in, and I certainly don't have room to put a shower in. Not that it's an issue for me, because I'm running up and down the eastern seaboard at the moment, and those facilities, while they're not readily available to me, are available if I know where to go. So if I was to run a 72-inch sleeper instead of the 50-inch one that I run now, that's slightly less than 2 feet. It's that much.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
I can't understand how someone can say that slightly under 2 feet is going to impact on the swept area that much.
Well, and it would be double or a triple. How can anyone argue? How can you ever put up an argument?
The reality of it is if you end up in a checking station and you're over, I can't remember now exactly how much it is, but all of our regulation seems to be focused on trailers, not prime movers.
So we can get more cheap freight on that?
Well, I was going to go down that path and say that every time we seem to get some sort of an improvement, one of the majors, with their own motivation, will go and make an application to register a 53-foot trailer so they can cart groceries for Woolies. Can I name? I'm sorry.
You absolutely can, because it's the truth. It's
right.
You're not making it up.
No, I'm not making it up.
You're under parliamentary privilege.
All right, well, I'm probably not working for Woolies there. The reality of it is that there's a 53-foot trailer running up and down the Geum Highway at the moment at 90 kilometres an hour, so that the authorities can say, we've made this big thing run at 90 kilometres an hour.
What a load of crap.
What a load of rubbish, in my opinion.
Rubbish, sorry,
We've allowed them to put 2 extra pallet spaces on, because that's what 53 feet means. And
so 4 pallets in effect.
4 pallets, sorry.
Yes.
And this thing runs up and down the road at a 110 kilometre road, 20 kilometres an hour slower than the speed limit, because everyone assumes that that's safe. And in my opinion, as a driver, it's not safe.
Don't know the PBS?
I believe it's under some scheme that
All
they
right.
run.
Doesn't
As I say, Senator, I am not a rules person.
Yeah.
What I see out on the road is I see a sign that's got a little red circle and a 90 in it and a big emblem on the back of the trailer, and I know that I have to change lanes and go around the thing. Now, I'm not denigrating the drivers. I'm not saying the companies aren't doing the wrong. The company that does that are motivated by the fact that that's what their customer wants, to carry as much freight as they possibly can at the best rate they possibly can, to carve out some margin and make a profit.
And let's quickly look at we're not taking too much time, but the knock-on effect. How do small operators and owner drivers compete with that?
Well, they don't.
Well, exactly.
They don't.
That's right.
Now, if you look at something that's actually in the magazines at the moment, we've got a company that runs Adelaide-Perth who has a trial underway at the moment to run full-length B doubles
I'm well aware of it.
into Perth.
Sorry, I'm aware of the road train coming down Greenmount.
Yes, that's the one.
Right, yeah, okay.
Goes down Greenmount. So it's a full-length road train.
Yep.
Now, you and I both know, and this is the reason why I bring this up, because I'd be surprised if you weren't fully across this. There are A trains, what we call A trains here in Australia, in New South Wales, A doubles, that are running up and down there at greater weights than a regular B double, carting grain, carting fertiliser, carting things out of the wheat belt down into the area of Perth. They go down Greenmount.
Sure.
So there is a road train break-up area at Northam, as I'm sure you're well aware, and I've used it when I've worked over there running road trains across, and I'm required to go in there. So let's just think about the whole fatigue management point of view. If I'm running over there on my own, I've got to go into Northam, I've got to split my road train, I've got to take my lead trailer into Perth, drop it off. If I've got no one to do my dog run, I've got to go back out, get the dog trailer, run it back in. So that's an extra truck movement. It's an extra 2 truck movements for the same set of trailers.
Right, extra couple of hours.
Extra couple of hours, and I get there and I get my trailers. And if I'm not one of the fortunate ones that are just dropping them at the depot, then I've got to unload them.
Yes, that's right.
And if I'm running flat tops, there's bugger all freight out of Perth, so I'm probably going to deck them up and go home. But the reality of it is that the big companies have ways to manage this stuff. They have dog runners, they have guys that go out there. Owner drivers have no way to mitigate any of that. It's the same with the border issues that we had recently in New South Wales, sitting there held up 4 or 5 hours at the border, and they've got no way to mitigate what's going on. They just have to suck it up and suffer the financial cost of it. So the company that running out of Adelaide to Perth has been given a commercial advantage for the purpose of a trial by the fact that they don't have to split those trailers up, by the fact that they don't have to pay for the fuel to go up and down the hill twice, by the fact they're not paying their drivers, if they are paying them on trip money, not to do that little bit of a run. If they are in fact paying for them at all, I don't know their arrangements and I may be verbally them, and I apologise if I am, because they are a good, safe, well-known company, and I never had any worries about them when I was running the paddock. But the reality of it is that they've been granted a commercial advantage to do that trial.
I am over it. I'm well aware of.
So the fact of the matter is now that trial's been extended, as far as I'm aware.
It has. Yep.
And they are going to continue to be handed that trial. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the evidence is already in. These guys have already proved that it's safe to do what they're doing. The fact that these A trains have been running up and down there at greater weights for many, many years has proved that it's safe to be going on. Why is that road now not gazetted? And everyone, from the owner driver to the big company, have the same commercial opportunity. And this is the sort of thing that I've tried to highlight time and time and time again, Glenn. The motivations and the power of the various individuals provides them the opportunity to get what they want. And the driver doesn't have a say in what goes on at all. In fact, he is the one at the very bottom of the tree that ends up paying the fine for failing to remember to turn around a long vehicle sign, $650, thank you very much.
Yeah.
He's the one that pays the price for not being able to get into the parking bay. And just on parking bays, if I've still got some time, Senator, the one that I would like to highlight that really does grind my gears is the one at Gatton, the pad at Gatton, where they've set up there for 7 road trains to be able to split up to run into town. Now, this is divided road. It's 2-lane highway all the way from Toowoomba all the way to the port. Why the hell can't A trains can do it? Why the hell can't a full-length road train go all the way to the port and break it up there?
Because some bureaucrat says they can't.
Because some bureaucrat says they can't. Now, here's the thing. I was talking to Ken Wilkie the other day, and he said to me, you've got no way of knowing what's going on at that pad when you get there. If you've got to drive past because there's no room, you've got no way of guessing how many road trains can fit in there, and they say 7. Well, I've driven past it. I can't see 7 road trains in that space. If you drive past, as Ken said to me, Tommy Teacher has got no idea what combination is what the signs mean. All they know is if I get in this road, it's going to run over me.
Yep. Mick, can I just, sorry, because I really don't want to lose you on this one.
Yeah.
So I diverted you, and I want to just say, Jerry, and to Senator Rennick and the committee members, we need to explore with the powers to be. We need to talk. Who is that person you said, the whiz kid on not the whiz kid, Adam, the expert or something?
Adam, yes.
I think that we have to progress this, Jerry, and I know we're wrapping up the Senate inquiry, but it would be criminal if we don't go down this path a little bit more for something as simple as a tick on a piece of paper that says to Kenworth and Western Star or Bolt, whoever it might be, give us an extra 22 centimetres, or whatever it may be. Seriously.
22 inches.
I'm sorry, 22 inches. Kind of one, yeah. I'm getting as bad as him. Okay, but
I can't speak for Adam, but I'm not certain he'd be in a position to talk to him.
All right. Well, we'll find someone, the automobile, the manufacturers, or
there
something.
Are plenty
like
of
that.
there are plenty of engineers out there who can verify what I've said.
We'll get the right people, Jerry. So let's do that as we're wrapping up. Mick, I don't want to let you to go without this, mate. And my last one, we have gone a little bit over time. Like I said, we could go for hours on this. Now we do know the remuneration problem. Now let's get the prickly bit. We had what was the RSRT, and anyway, we know where that all went.
Yes.
In your view, and you talk to a lot more truck drivers than I do, and I think I talk to a lot. What would, if you had the keys to the till, mate? How would we fix this? What do we need to do? I'll lead on. Just enforcing the basic award would be a damn good start. But anyway, I'm keen to hear from you as an operator.
If I was the Federal Minister for Transport, the first thing I would do is have a complete review of the National Heavy Vehicle Law. Now, I appreciate that that's underway at the moment, but it's my firm belief that some people are not presenting information that I would consider to be relevant to that, and some of the people who aren't in a position to present are being told that they shouldn't. Once again, the motivations and the power tree sort of seems as though it's in play there. The next thing I would do is I would automatically and immediately outlaw the payment of trip money. My friend Trevor Warner put a submission into Fair Work about the trip money component and the way the awards are being judged at the moment, and there was a ruling against him by Fair Work, and I would love to ask people why like the TWU to their face, and they run every time I go anywhere near them, why they oppose that. Because simply put, they've said, the Fair Work body is saying that long distance truck drivers aren't entitled to money while they're sitting in queues. They aren't entitled to get any remuneration for the fact that they're required to be there, and they're expected to just shut up and suck it up. And in my way, that's not good enough. The next thing I would do is make sure that the roads and the rest areas are suitable. If you listen to Rod Hannafy in his submission, I'm sure you did, he will tell you that even though these things have got a design to them, it is in no way adequate to what happens. These things are not designed to accommodate the larger combinations that are appearing on our roads at the moment. And I cite as an example the quad that Lamartina's running now on the road. Please show me a rest area that's anywhere on that route which is suitable for that driver to pull that vehicle up in. The next thing is a pragmatic consideration of vehicle length and weight laws to allow for better living quarters. And by weight laws, I mean steer weight laws, particularly on the steers. I am not asking for 25 tonne on the try or something like that. I'm after a realistic weight on a steer axle which will allow for these bigger cabs. Now, there are trucks manufactured in Europe. The Scania Exa is an example of this, with a 9-tonne axle on them that have a 7.5 tonne weight on the steer, which as we speak is over the allowed limit. That particular truck, if you care to have a look at it one time, did appear at the Brisbane Truck Show several years ago, and everyone loved it, but no one can order it because it can't meet the Australian standard. Now, there are rules about how all these weights are calculated. As I said, I'm not a rules and regulations person. I'm certainly not an engineer, but I have been told by people I've had conversations with that an extra tonne on the steer really shouldn't be an issue. These things can be looked at, and as I say, it's a stroke of the pen. It would allow operators to drive these trucks on the road and not take an effect. And I will tell you now that there are trucks that are meeting the Australian standards that you can't weigh with a full tank of fuel on as a 26 metre B double because they go over on the steer. And I don't want to badmouth Kenworth because they produce a beautiful truck, and I've had Kenworths, own Kenworths.
I have one. Yeah.
Love Kenworth. The fact of the matter is, a K200 big cab full of fuel on its weight is over on the steer.
And Mick, just briefly,
Yep.
do we really believe that a chemical toilet with a bit more space is going to weigh a tonne? But anyway,
Well, I'm not going to go.
Sorry.
That's for things to decide. As I said, I'd like a review of the fatigue management laws, focusing on technological advancement, because there are some stunning technological advancements that are happening at the moment.
Yep.
And I'd be happy to take a question on notice and provide further information on that.
Consider it done. Consider it done. Mick, consider it
The
done.
implementation of publicly available data so that the drivers can decide who they're going to work for. So if you're going to work for a company that has had an abysmal track record, they have poor maintenance problems, that they have a poor record of compliance, all this information's there. I believe that the RMS or the authorities in general have that information. In fact, the NHVR now is about to have a trial go under the way where they have trailers, cars and drones to track and gain intelligence on who these individuals are. And they've even said they're prepared to use that information to target some companies who are more compliant less.
Good.
Now, I don't have a problem with any of that, Glenn, but what needs to happen as a result of that is me as a driver needs to interview the company as much as they need to interview me. I don't want to go and work for someone who's going to break the law in 5 minutes. I don't want to be associated with them. I don't want my good record and my name tarnished because I'm driving something in their colours. And I could name names, but at this point I decline. The implementation of a review system that allows commercial drivers to contest infringement notices without being financially destroyed.
You're going to hear a bit more of that this afternoon.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you're saying there, but for me, as an interstate driver, I can pass between several jurisdictions in the week in the course of my work. If I manage to make a small mistake at Wallan and I live in Sydney, then if I choose to contest that mistake, then I've got to take time off work to do it. I've got to suffer the financial cost of getting there. If I lose, I'm going to be creamed by the costs.
Yep.
And if I'm on trip money, then the wheels aren't turning. I'm not making any money. And my problem with all this is it has a chilling effect on the drivers who just say it's a cheaper economic option for them to pay the fine.
Yep.
Now that affects their record. Now if something unfortunately happens to that driver down the track,
History will come back.
the history will come back and bite them hard because the coroner or whoever it is looking at this guy and he's got, oh mate, you've got a list as long as your arm with little infringements, and it won't help him at all to say, yeah, but I only paid those because it was cheaper to pay the fine than, because as soon as you pay the fine, you've admitted guilt. And I must say to you, Senator, my firm belief from the experience that I have of driving a truck, a lot of these fines are, shall we say, not directed in the right way. And as you say, you'll hear more. Senator, that concludes my presentation to you. I appreciate the time that you've given me. I really do. And I genuinely hope that your report doesn't end up in some dusty shelf somewhere. It does in fact end up in front of the people that need to see it. And even though you and I sit on opposite sides of the aisle in a lot of respects, so I respect you for having this inquiry and for giving everyone a chance to speak and present their cases. And I find from talking to people like you, I'm closer to the middle, and we have a lot more in common than we have that separates us. Thanks for your time, sir.
Good on you, Mick. Thanks very much. Just before you run away, mate, as a thought, I think we do need to progress as an industry the conversation around who's a good operator, who's a bad operator, a sticker on the back or whatever it may be.
Yes.
Something came out yesterday in evidence about 5-star trucking, which I had heard about. With my hand on my heart, I didn't know exactly what it was, and I can't remember who the witness was. Isn't that terrible? Who spoke about 5-star trucking, and you would think the industry would love. We're quick to whack on a sticker on the back of our trailers. If you can't see my mirrors, I can't see you.
Yes.
And NTI supports that. What is wrong with someone to say he's a 5-star operator and reward them for that?
Indeed.
Whatever that may be. So that might be a podcast I might listen to. You might want
Something
to follow and I'll listen
something
to
to
that.
talk about on the road.
It's on the road, and good luck to on the road. You're doing a great job there, Mick. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Before we go to our next witness, I just I want to have 5 more minutes with Mick Williams, because we've had a chat in the break, and there's something very important he wants to put on the record. You want to put on the record,
Absolutely,
and I want
I
you
do.
to do that before you go back to work this afternoon, mate. So over to you.
Thanks very much for the bit of additional time, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity. The one thing that I did talk about in my submission, which I haven't stated for the record here today, is the fact that we have a situation where many drivers are coming from overseas, and I'm on the record as saying I don't care where people come from, whether they come from India, Alaska, America. There's nothing at all that is racist about this. The problem that we have is these people grow up driving in the culture that they grow up in. So they understand the mores of their society, they understand the rules of the road of their society, and they learn to drive within those legal requirements and the rules and the mores as they affect the environment where they learn. And when they come to Australia, they bring all that with them. Now, I am not in any way saying that is a bad thing. In fact, it broadens our experience when it's given the opportunity to take hold. I have worked with people from all over the world in the industry, out in the oil fields and all that sort of thing. The problem that I have is that once upon a time we used to have a situation where people would come to Australia and they would have to prove their experience and they would have to learn how to drive. And as the rules have changed, then the situation is now that drivers can come here, and if they've proved they've had a heavy rigid licence for more than 12 months, an unrestricted heavy vehicle licence, then they can do a short course, then all of a sudden have a multi-combination licence, which allows them to legally operate a quad in Karratha. When they may have been driving a rigid truck around Chicago or something. Who knows what they've been doing? As long as they can pass the test, they can have the licence. Now, we have some high-profile incidents that people hark back to. There was one that people will remember, some drivers from the subcontinent who were in trouble on the highway over at the Sydney Airport Tunnel, and we discovered the deficiency in their training when some RMS officers had to help them out. And then, of course, because they're legally licensed, they are allowed to go on their way. So the situation that we have now is a very fragmented one, where sometimes some of these licences are issued without satisfactory vetting of the operators that have the licences, and I genuinely believe that that's an issue that needs to be addressed. The training and subsequent retesting of professional drivers on an annualised basis is something that really does need to be considered to improve the road safety effort on the road. And that's pretty much what I wanted to put on the record.
Look, thank you very much, Mick. And this committee, it's not strange to this committee, we did an inquiry where we touched on that. We wrote, I thought, a very fine report saying the same thing. Everyone's welcome, come in, but just be the same standard as the rest of our drivers who have their licence here to start with, and welcome aboard.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, Mick, thank you very much for
Thanks very much for the additional time, Senator. I appreciate the indulgence of the committee.